Hi, I'm Cece Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. I am Cece Péan. I'm excited to be here with you this evening. This recipe is going to be so yummy. I hope you all are cooking along with me. For those of you who do not know, what we're making this evening is a spicy baked ziti with spinach and shiitake bacon. So funny, bacon is one of these things that people are always talking about. It tastes just like bacon. This is bacon. There's bacon now in chocolate. There's bacon. People put bacon on drinks. People put bacon, bacon flavored potato chips. Bacon, bacon, bacon. I'm not a pork eater. I've never been a pork eater. Even when I ate turkey, I wasn't big into bacon. But there is something salty and crispy and delicious about bacon, and we're going to recreate that with shiitake mushrooms. Now, here's a hint right off bat. Hey, Yolande, here's a hint right off bat. Shiitake mushrooms, where you will find the best price for shiitake mushrooms, go to your local Asian market. Don't go to Publix, don't go to Kroger's, don't go to whatever store. Go to an Asian market. They're going to have the best price on shiitake mushrooms. So I got a good pound and a half of mushrooms for about $4. I would never be able to do that in a regular store. So that's a hint for you. We're going to get started right away because we've got quite a bit to cover. Oops, let me plug this in. We've got quite a bit to cover. We're making pasta, we're doing bacon, and I've already boiled my pasta. Now, when I do my pasta, I always do it, I undercook it, probably about a minute or 2 minutes. The reason I do that is because I like my pasta al dente, A. B, you're going to bake this. You're going to bake it a little more, so it's going to continue to cook. And I do not like mushy pasta. I like to be able to still have some texture. You always hear me talk about texture. So that is why we undercook it just a little bit. So we've got our pasta. Now this is something I'm using penne pasta, ziti. You can use bow tie pasta if you want to. You can use or I think it's orchietti. It's called. It's the other word for ear. It's like a little eardrum. You can use that. Any of those pastas that the sauce can just kind of like coat and get into those nooks and crannies. That's the kind of pasta that you want to do this. But we're doing ziti tonight. So I've got my pan going. What I'm going to do before I cook anything in the pan is I'm going to make a cream sauce. Now I use this cream sauce because when I combine it with the tomato, it almost looks like penne alla vodka. If you've heard of that, it has a real nice creaminess to it. It's adding more protein because we're using tofu. If you don't want to use tofu, you can just use plant milk and you can thicken it with a little agar-agar or arrowroot or cornstarch or something like that. So I'm going to use my silken tofu, just going to drop that in my blender. I'm going to add my nutritional yeast. I'm going to add a little bit of my plant milk. And that's it for this, because all the other flavor is actually going to be in the pan. So let me just get that going so that when I'm ready to eat. Okay, so that's done. So it's interesting. It actually smells like pizza in here because we've got spinach, we've got tomato sauce, we've got plant-based mozzarella, we've got fresh basil, we've got Italian seasonings, cumin, onions, and this recipe, the spiciness is going to come from my spice, which is the diaspora chili blend. I don't know if you can see that. I'm working on getting this up on the website. Many of you have asked for it. It's coming. I have a spice flight that I'm going to be selling, and the spice flight will be the diaspora chili blend, the quarantine curry, which is an homage to my mother from Guyana, and then a tofu scramble. Anyway, so let's get going. Put a little bit of oil in this pan. I'm going to add our onions. It's going to go pretty quickly. I love this hot plate. Already smells delish. Turn this down a little bit. I'm going to add my garlic. And that's 2 cloves of garlic mince. Now, something that I left out of the recipe, which I neglected to let you know, it's always nice to add a little bit of tomato paste to this, because tomato paste has this real depth and richness to it. I like to use tomato paste and tomato sauce for my pastas. Of course, you can buy bottled pasta if you like, or can. I like to avoid that because I have more control of what I'm ingesting when I make it from scratch. But by all means, if you want to shortcut this, you can go ahead and buy bottled pasta and just kind of like cook it up a little bit. I always believe in the cook up. So now I'm going to add my tomato paste. I swear, whenever I'm cooking with you all, my nose starts to itch. Just going to break that down a little bit. Okay. I'm going to add some cumin to this. Cumin and coriander. Okay. Now I'm going to add my tomato sauce. This is just plain tomato sauce, nothing fancy, because we're building out the flavors of this dish. Again, we're doing this because we want to control it. You know, I understand a lot of times we buy things because they're quick and they're easy, but something that I always say is convenience is killing us. So, you know, take a little more time. Just plan ahead, and you can make something that tastes even better than what's on the shelves. More often than not, you can. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit of my Italian seasoning here. Now, my agave spice blend is a little peppery. It is. The diaspora chili blend. We've got some roasted pepper in there. It's got cloves. It's got a little bit of cardamom in there. It's got all these yummy spices. I don't want to give away everything. But yummy spices that just add just enough heat. So this is warming through nicely. I'm gonna just sprinkle on this. So probably I'm gonna put in about a tablespoon. You could use more if you'd like. I'm using a tablespoon. And once this spice hits the sauce, you will know it's there. Okay. This is looking good. Now, normally what I would do at this point is I would let it cook down just a little bit. Here's another note. If you're ever using canned tomato products, you may notice a kind of actually like a tinny type of flavor. What you need to do to get rid of that is to turn down the heat and just let it cook for a while. When the tomato is cooked for a while, it'll get rid of that. I believe that comes from, you know, they use all kinds of tomatoes. Sometimes the tomatoes aren't necessarily right. So that's what will happen. This is looking and smelling amazing. So now we're going to add our cream, which is the tofu mixture. This is looking. Mix this together, and you see it's getting that pink cream. I think this is the best of both worlds. I love tomato sauce, but I love the creamy sauces too. So this is a perfect mix. Perfect combination. Okay. This is looking great. Now, I've already boiled my pasta. One of the things you should know, I don't cook my spinach before I mix it in here. I just toss it in there. Now, the other thing, at this point, you would probably stop and you would get your baking dish together. This dish I can actually put directly into the oven, so I don't have to do that. But if you were going to use a baking dish, you didn't have something that was go from the stove top to the oven. At this point, you want to get that out, and you want to oil it a little bit, spray it down, so it has. Turn this down, so it doesn't explode in my face. And I'm going to taste this for salt. See if I need to put salt to it. That's got heat. Okay, so now I'm going to take my 2 hands of my 2 cups of spinach, not my 2 hands, 2 cups of spinach. Drop that in there, and it's going to wilt just a little bit. Are you following along? Anybody have anything to say? Anybody? Anything? This is just going to break down just a little bit. Turn it back up. I may have turned it down too. Now, this is how I choose to do it. If you want to cook your spinach ahead of time, you can, but make sure you drain it because it gives off a lot of water. I'm doing mine like this because it's really not going to be in the oven that long. All right. So now it's time for our pasta. And when I boil my pasta also, I do not use any oil. Sometimes people use oil to kind of like separate it. I don't do that because I want the sauce to cling to my pasta. This is looking so good. We are 14 minutes in, and we have got some yummy pasta. Now, you can always make more sauce if you want, depending if you're somebody who likes really saucy pasta. This is just the right amount. It's beautiful. That's finished in it. Now, you could do broccoli if you wanted to. You could steam some broccoli and use that instead. You can be adventurous and use some kale in this. You could do zucchini. There's so many things. Okay, at this point, I'm going to add my cup of plant-based mozzarella. And if you watched me when I did the macaroni and cheese a few weeks ago, I talked about kind of have to coax this. So when it gets some heat under this, it melts beautifully, but it really needs to kind of be like ensconced in the pasta. This is a quick meal for your family. Kids love pasta, and again, it's like a pizza pasta. That's what it tastes like. Okay, So now I'm going to use some of my fresh basil. I'm not going to use all of it. I like to have some of it at the end as well. With this fresh basil, it's kind of like a margarita pizza. Now we're going to margarita with it. This is looking amazing. All right, so I'm going to pop this in the oven. And then we're going to get started on our bacon. This is looking so yummy. I'll be right back. All righty. Now I want you all to know I have not added any salt to that pasta. Let me add though that I did add a little bit of salt to the water when I boiled it. That's a great way to cut down on the amount of salt that you need. A lot of times people try to season pasta after you've cooked it, and that really doesn't help. And so oftentimes you end up over salting. So what I suggest you do is that you salt your water a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit, because what's going to happen then is it will infuse into your pasta. All right. I'll bring my cutting board over here so I can show you all how we want to cut our shiitake. So these are our shiitake mushrooms. And really interesting smells then. But you want to cut off the root. The root is really woody and fibrous, so we don't want that. We're going to cut that off. Comes off pretty easily. And then we're just going to cut this thin. The key to making this bacon is to cut your mushrooms thin enough so that they crisp up, that they get the flavor from the marinade, but that they crisp up as well. So we want them thin. Okay? About that thin. Now, optimally, what we would do in making these is we would allow it to marinate for 15 minutes in our marinade. We don't have that time this evening, so we're going to do a fast version of it. And shiitakes really are the best mushrooms to use for this. They have a hardiness about them that can handle a marinade and then still crisp up. If you're familiar with mushrooms, a lot of times mushrooms, they're like sponges, and they don't recover once they get water on them. They're kind of a mess. That's not the case with shiitake. And if you're joining later, I shared earlier that the best place to get the best prices on shiitake mushrooms are Asian markets. You can't beat that price. There's eggplant bacon. People use eggplant to make bacon. They use carrots to make vegan bacon. There's so many different ways to do it. Okay, so my mushrooms are done. Mushrooms are done, and we're going to do our marinade. And so in our marinade, we have maple syrup, we have soy sauce, or you could use Bragg's, liquid aminos, you can use tamari. We're using smoked paprika for the smokiness, a little bit of black pepper. You can forego that if you don't want to. You can use cayenne instead. And then a little bit of coconut oil. So we're going to do our marinade. This is about a quarter cup of maple syrup, 2 teaspoons of soy sauce. How much of this am I putting? I want to make sure I'm telling right. A tablespoon of smoked paprika, black pepper, and some of our coconut oil. And I'm just going to mix this. You can use a whisk if you'd like. I'm just going to use a spoon today. You could also just use oil instead if you want. You don't have to use coconut oil. You just use grapeseed or something like that. Okay, so this is well mixed. And now I'm just going to drop my mushrooms in here. Now, I have a lot of mushrooms here. So this would take me quite a bit of time to fry them all. I have done this as well in the oven. It works, but you have got to pay attention because you take your eyes away too long, you will have a problem. They will burn up quickly. So doing them on the stove is it's a better option. It's kind of like with the oven, sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind. Okay. These are looking great. So like I said, perfect world, we would let these marinate for 15 minutes. All right, so let me turn this back on. Perfect world, you would also use cast iron. But we're going to use this. It's going to come out fine. All right. How are we looking for time? We're at 8:22. All right. And let this warm up a bit. Any water or anything in this. Let me check on my pasta. I'll be right back. All right. So I'm just going to lay these in the pan. This is a tedious Just use my fingers. But it's yummy. Again, like I said, you can always try it. You can do it in the oven if you like. But I'm telling you, make sure you set your timer and you're on top of it because they burn so quickly. They go from not being quite ready to ruin in no time at all. I've been looking down quite a bit. I don't even anybody has any questions. None? No questions, anyone? All righty. So last week, Melissa, or week before last, I was a little under the weather last week before last, Melissa won a spice flight of my spices. And I don't think she's tried them as yet, but I'm anxious to hear what she has to say. We're going to be doing another giveaway soon. All right. These are cooking and smelling great. This is really good. Like these would be good. I mean, you'd have to use a whole bunch of them, but if you want to make like a BLT, you could use this for that. Cooking up nicely. Oops, that one got a little burnt. Are you all cooking along with me? Are you making the bacon? I saw that Shauna, I don't know if Shauna's on. Some of these are quite crispy. Shauna Randolph made the fresh rolls the other day, and they looked delish. I actually made some fresh rolls the other day with fruit. I did fruit fresh rolls. They were great. Again, in the perfect world, these would have marinated a while, and we'd be taking more time at cooking them, but we're not in the perfect world, unfortunately. I'm going to take that off and check on our pasta. I think we're going to get it ready to plate. There we go. See that? So I made a fruit. Yolanda's asking what fruit I use. I use sliced mango. I used pear. I used sliced mango, pear. I did fresh basil leaf in there, and I used some apple, and then I did a dip from vanilla almond yogurt and some fresh ginger. It was so delicious, really, really good. So you all, can you see our pasta? It is done. Our pasta is done. Now I'm gonna, you can't hear it, but it is very creamy. Very creamy. This is the point when I usually call my husband and ask him to taste some. And he acts like he doesn't want to, but he's a pastaholic. So this is what it looks like so far. Look at that. Vegan. Now I'm going to zhuzh it up a bit because we have to zhuzh. And so to this, I'm going to do a sprinkle of my fresh basil. I'm going to use some Violife Parmesan. This is some great product. And I'm just going to use my microplane and go over it because we want it to taste good and look good. This looks so good. And some fresh chopped scallions. And there you have it, folks. Now let me just put on my little bit of my bacon. A little bit of my bacon on top. Woo. This looks so good, folks. So good. I'm gonna be greedy. Just a little more on top of that. Okay, what's it? 8:30? We've made a delicious dish for your family in under 30 minutes. Look at that. Spicy baked ziti with spinach and shiitake bacon. I'm actually proud of this dish. So I hope you all enjoyed this evening. I hope that you cooked along with me, or at least you're going to try this dish. I'm going to try it right now. Let me grab a spoon. I'm preparing myself for an experience. Spicy, creamy, got a little bit of tang to it. It's got crispiness of the shiitake bacon. We've got our spinach in there. Delicious. Thanks for joining me. See you next week on Reclaiming Your Health.